Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is Off the Bar. Joining me, not as always, but a different co-host today. I've got Mr. Ronaldo Brown. How are we doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing much better now because Manu kind of saved probably the rest of my weekend, to be honest.
Yeah. Sorry.
Because I can't literally tell you how stressed I was after they equalised. I'm so glad I weren't in it. Caught out on camera, I'd be never allowed on camera again.
Off the Bar is brought to you by Green King Sport, of course, and we've got a special guest today from The Athletic, Mr. Carl Anka. Carl, it's good to see you back on the channel. It's been a little while, hasn't it?
It's been a little while, sorry.
United, you're a busy guy.
United were really busy. You never get more than 2 days off covering this football club. But Joe sent me a text, I want to say last Thursday, first thing in the morning, went, can you come on? I went, yeah, sure. We can do like a post-transfer window appearance today, or we could do something next Friday. And you're like, yeah, let's do a post-transfer window. So we're thinking, it'll be pretty chill, just talking about looking at the squad, what possibly can come on with anything else, and then things happened, didn't they?
Things happened. Yeah. Non-transfer things happened, but things happened in Wolverhampton. We'll get into a little bit about the game and Kobbie Mainoo and all the rest of it. First of all, I'll talk about some of the articles you've written recently. You've written one looking at Brian Brobbey.
Yes.
Erik ten Hag likes him. I've got two questions, really. One, do you like that, the idea of Brian Brobbey coming to Manchester United? And two, do you think Erik ten Hag's going to get his way with transfers moving forward, if I can broaden it out a little bit?
So Brian Brobbey's an interesting one in that if you subscribe to The Athletic or you've been reading a lot of my pieces for a while, you know what very often happens in the summer window is I do a series called Shopping for Ten Hag. And I go, right, okay, Man United need a position. Here's every single player Ten Hag has used in this position at Ajax. Here's everyone he's used at Man United in that. That means he tends to want players that can do X, Y, Z. And then I take all these attributes, I'll put them in the big supercomputer at The Athletic, and I go, here's all the players under the age of a certain blah, 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 who are very good at all those things that Ten Hag tends to like. And you go, every time we do it, I tend to write an article about a centre forward, and every time I've done it, I've written a sentence or two about Brian Brobbey. Because Brobbey is what I can only describe as like a young bull of a striker. You know, if you watch football in the 90s, those like 5'9", huge thighs, ball of muscle, like Sergio Aguero type, Romario type. they're not the tallest, and you're not necessarily whipping in the corner for them. But in terms of they're getting the ball, massive backside, and just powerful shots. Brobbey is of that ilk, and every time, every single season, I looked at him, I went, yeah, you could see maybe one day Ten Hag trying to bring him back. One thing we also know about Brobbey is he apparently is one of the, he used to make Ten Hag burst out laughing at training sessions in Ajax, which apparently is pretty hard to do. And, I've tried my hardest to make Ten Hag laugh, and it's
Have you not got anywhere?
No, I'm trying with the Dutch, trying to get there.
Really? That's an effort.
You mentioned earlier how stoic you think Ten Hag comes across as well sometimes.
Yeah, he does sometimes. Yeah. And I get it. You don't have to be all sort of, Postecoglou or even, you were talking earlier about Sean Dyche. Even he can be a bit jokey at times when he's not got.
Sean Dyche after a win is the most confident man you will ever meet in your life. Yeah. He walks in, swaggering arms, like, all right, boys.
Yeah.
He's the funniest manager after a victory. Like after a victory, that man is just like. Not long ball, long pass, mate. Was something he told me in a press conference. So he's great. Brobbey makes Ten Hag laugh. Young bull of a striker. Interest has been there. Brobbey's joked on more than one occasion, pretty much 3 occasions. The Dutch journalists go, Ten Hag's gone to Manchester United. Would you like to be reunited with him? He's like, nah, not really. Although, could they come back in the summer? So there's not enough smoke for me to call the fire brigade.
Right, okay.
But we know there is manager-led interest between Brian Brobbey and the Ajax striker, Brian Brobbey and Erik ten Hag, and it's manager-led. I can't tell you if John Murta is going, oh yeah, great, or if the data team is going, this will work, or if the scouting team is going, this will work right now. If there is interest, that comes from Ten Hag, because Erik ten Hag has a type. Which is, have you played in the Eredivisie, or have you played for me? Have you played for me previously?
Yeah.
Now, in the piece I did about Brian Brobbey, I break down on The Athletic what he's good at, and one thing I will say is there is a dedicated section. If you're listening to this or watching this, going, another player from the Netherlands, I've been burnt before, where I like doubly try and explain which of his skills would scale well to the Premier League and which ones I think will be difficult. So one thing that's notable about Brobbey is he is stronger than pretty much every single centre back in the Dutch league.
Right.
And his technical ability is very, very good, but it can be patchy. He can be very, very streaky. And he has a thing which I can honest, Luke Shaw does this every now and again, where Shaw is, every now and again, Shaw will take a heavy touch, and then you can go, oh God, you can see it in his face, like, I've taken a heavy touch. I'm gonna have to now just like barge that guy out of the way.
Yeah.
Where you use your physical traits to compensate for technical shortcomings you've done 2 or 3 times. Brobbey does this a lot in the Netherlands, where because he's so much stronger than everyone else, sometimes he's like, slack touch, I'll just push that guy out of the way and correct it. Which, that's fine. You can do that in the Dutch league. You can do that very well against the bottom half. I don't know if you can do that if he's playing against Ibrahim Konate, for example. Yeah. So that's one thing that might not scale if he was to come to Manchester United, which again, I don't know. It's Manchester United, we don't know the financial situation. Having an interest in something is very different from acting on that interest. And one thing I will say, Brobbey is incredibly streaky in front of goal. So he's in the middle of a really good hot streak right now. I think he's got something like 7 goals. When I wrote the piece, he had 7 goals in his last 5 games. 2 of those games were against bottom half teams, and he scored 4. And when when he's on it, he's on it.
Yeah.
When he's not on it, you will want to pull your t-shirt over your head. So I tend to watch Ajax games pretty much every single Sunday unless Manchester United are playing. My partner is Dutch. I'm learning to speak Dutch. There are times in the press conference I'm like, "Hoi, meneer Ten Hag, hoe gaat het?" And he's like, yeah.
That's impressive, man.
So this isn't just me watching highlights of Ajax. This is me having watched Brobbey for a while. Yeah. Something that's also got to bear in mind is he did try and leave Ajax before. His agent at the time, Mino Raiola, sent him off to RB Leipzig. And then he came back after 6 months and Raiola went, I got that wrong. I take responsibility for that. Right. And thinking it was a step too soon. So Brobbey is a very interesting talent. He's going to be on a lot of European team shortlists this summer. Not only is he going to be pretty integral to what Ajax need to do to get from this 5th place bit in the Dutch league to getting closer to 3rd. They're not going to win the league. They've had a terrible season. I think 3rd's probably the best limit. But also, I think he'll probably have a really big role to play in the Netherlands in Euro 2024. I'll probably be watching some of those games in Germany as well. So if something happens, I might have a chin bag with him. Probably in English. My Dutch isn't that good yet. But he's a player you should vaguely keep in the back of your mind. Again, no guarantees he's going to move, but he is of an archetype that Ten Hag likes in his strikers. And as we're talking right now, I mean, Højlund's the only fit, specialised number 9. Yeah. And you get the sense of if you were in charge of squad building at Manchester United, how many strikers would you want to buy now?
1.
You won't get 1 more striker.
Minimum, I'd probably want 2 if I could, but if I'd at least want 1. You need 1 minimum, but if he could get 2, I just don't think.
So when you buy 1 more, where would that? And again, this theoretical striker, are they back up to Højlund or do they go ahead of Højlund in the pecking order? Let's pretend I've given you 150 million transfer budget.
There you go. I like this game.
For the summer to get however many players you want. How much of it you're spending on a striker and what sort of striker you getting?
I don't think if you've got a budget of just 150 million, I feel like you'll find it really difficult to get a striker of probably around the Højlund age range of his ability and obviously his prospective potential. I don't reckon you can actually justify getting.
So you're getting a cheap backup?
It probably will have to be because you're looking at elsewhere in the team. I agree. Also, I think 1 striker, because I know Rashford might not like to hear that, but sometimes you have players in the team that are forwards where they're almost he's almost a striker winger hybrid, isn't he? So if worse comes to worse, Rashford can play up front in certain games.
So this is interesting. So Ten Hag's press conference, the quotes came out at 1:30. This was a press conference that was held after the Wolves result, and the quotes got held till 1:30. And he was asked about, did you want a striker in the January window? And Ten Hag was very honest. He goes, yeah, Martial's out for 10 weeks. It'd be really useful to have one, but we can't because of financial reasons. But he also said we have to be a bit creative. We've got Amad Diallo and we've got Omari Forson, which I'm like, okay. Interesting. I too was like you, thinking Marcus Rashford would probably have to spend a couple of games at centre forward, a couple of second half performances. But Forson came on at number 9 against Wolves. Had like 4 touches, but there were some good touches, very technically secure. And Amad Diallo, I'm very, very high on Amad, and I have been for a while. We know he can play through the middle from his time at Sunderland, so I'd like to see it for 10 minutes at the end of a Premier League game when United are winning 3-0. Are United going to be winning 3-0?
I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure.
You can do that against Newport.
And you also mentioned the transfer budget of 150 million.
That was just taken out.
Taken out. No, but
I'm taking out the backside.
Yeah, just like, there you go. That's Carl just said 150 million.
Nah, I'm saying it not like that, but in a perspective of if that was the budget that we had. Obviously, you mentioned Brian Brobbey as being someone that you looked at. I was going to ask you anyway, like, what would be the kind of predicted transfer value of someone like Brian Brobbey?
Strikers aren't cheap. You know, we're in a... Strikers come with a certain premium because there aren't too many number 9s. You remember those quotes? I remember quotes from, I want to say 2013, maybe 2014, from Arsene Wenger, where he went, we've essentially coached out the number 9ness with all our academy systems, and now you probably have to go to South America. This is when Higuain was being at Arsenal. He was for years. So we have loads of what you described, that sort of inverted forward.
Yes,
that player wants to play on the left-hand side, but perhaps doesn't necessarily want to play as a number 9. Mbappe is a great example of this. Mbappe wants to be on the 9. If he wanted to be the number 9, he could probably be 20-goal a season player, but he wants to get more touches on the ball. He wants to be involved in building.
Can you even say Martial was probably even that before he obviously got profile more to be
he was. Yeah, Martial. We'll get to Martial later, but Martial only really became a 9 because as a number of injuries took a yard of pace out of him, and also because, if you want to be really mean about it, he never paid attention in school. And they went, you just haven't learned how to curve your run from the left. I'm just going to put you in the middle so you have fewer runs to make. Because of this premium price on strikers, I mean, his interim manager, Jan van Schlipt, I've probably mispronounced that. He's got an apostrophe in a place that is not where you put apostrophes if you're English speaking. He said it would take a crazy amount of money for a team to buy him in the January transfer window. And from what we've seen with Ajax and players like Anthony and players like Lisandro Martinez, they're probably going to stick a 50, 60 million price tag on Brobbey if anyone wants to come see him. If you are Brobbey, okay, maybe. It's quite cool to go back to Ten Hag. Brobbey's already joked about the fact they used to text, but they don't text anymore because he's got a brand new phone number. This is his personality. He tells these sorts of jokes in press conferences. I like him because of this. He said, we used to text, but not anymore. I got a new phone. He's just very possibly the Premier League, but also the jump between going from the Eredivisie to the Premier League now. I mean, if you're any Dutch player, you're probably looking at some of the problems Anthony and other players have had and going, how do I make sure I'm more like Kudus and less like Anthony when I'm going from Ajax or any team in the Dutch league to the Premier League? You're probably also now thinking, maybe I've got to take a sideways jump. Maybe I should try and go to Germany. This is what he did going to RB Leipzig first. So again, not a slam dunk, not a, this is absolutely going to happen in the summer, but maybe. He'd cost a good chunk of money. He'd be frustrating a lot in those first 6 months for whatever team he ends up playing for. But he's got all that cult hero-ness, you know?
Yeah.
He's funny. He likes getting late goals. He's a cheeky chappy. He works really hard on the ball. He's not a great presser, I will say. So again, that will probably have to be refined as well. So if I'm sure when the SEO agents hear everything I've said and whack it on the aggregators, they're going to start saying, Carl Anka says Brian Brobbey's going to cost 50 million. But we'll see.
Just on that, the Ten Hag sort of element to it, do you see going forward him having as much as the same transfers as he's had in the past? Because I mean, you know better than I do. Look, it looks like he's been able to get, maybe not his first choice all the time, obviously what De Jong, but he's been able to get a lot of his choices and players that he wanted and that he knew.
I honestly can't tell you what's going to happen in the future. I can say in the past, it has been expressed to me by people at Manchester United that it's not just Ten Hag going, I want this player, and then everyone at Man United go off and get it. The example that was given to me was there was a 5-player shortlist for centre-back, and on that 5-player shortlist, Pau Torres was on it, Lisandro Martinez was on it, and other centre-backs were on it. So the shortlist was presented to Ten Hag. Ten Hag went, I would like Lisandro Martinez most of all because I've worked with him before. He's left-footed. I think he'd be very. And Ten Hag explained it, and then from there they went off and got Lisandro Martinez. How that worked with other signings, I'm less certain.
So the Lisandro Martinez signing had nothing to do with the fact that he was said to be on the verge of joining Arsenal around the same time as well.
So this is I've been covering Manchester United since 2020 full time living in Manchester. So I moved up here on a Monday into August 2020, and Harry Maguire got arrested in Greece on the Thursday, pretty much. And then you got me on Paddock as like hey, this is Carl. He's your new athletic right? And the thing I've learned a lot since covering United, living in Manchester and talking to other people who've been on this beat for ages. I talked, Andy Mitten, who set up United We Stand. One thing he always likes to say is there are so many versions of the truth. I've heard Arsenal's version of this story about we were going to get Martinez and this happened, and I've heard United's version of this story, and both of them are plausible. Yeah. So it's the it's very often you go to the gym, you lifted 60 kilograms. I saw you. I went, yeah, it looked like you lifted 55. Like, no, I lifted 65.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably in the middle, isn't it?
Yeah, probably.
So Arsenal probably were interested in Lisandro Martinez because Lisandro Martinez is one of the best left-footed centre-backs in the world. That also meant Manchester United, because he's one of the best left-footed centre-backs in the world, every single team that wanted a good left-footed centre-back probably had them in their eye line. And therefore, of that 5-person shortlist, you take it to Ten Hag, you went, well, here's the players. And I was like, that one. And then you go to Ajax and you go, what's the thing? And Ajax probably went, yeah, well, most people want us. So how much money do you have? I can't tell you, they absolutely moved him from just to make sure Arsenal didn't. But yeah, I can easily see a universe where Arsenal were also interested in him. I know I shouldn't say it, I'm quite sad Yuri and Timber got injured first week of the season because Timber is quality. I also think Timber getting injured first week in the season had an impact on a lot of managers at this first half of their season, where you saw quite a few managers go, that player is hobbling just a little bit, take him off quicker, because I don't want to have a Timber bit where they're accidentally going to exacerbate something and be out for a lot longer.
When did he get injured, Timber?
Timber got injured pretty much the first week.
Did he play in the game in America?
He did play in the
game. He played in the game in America.
I remember shocking, but I thought he did.
Very, very good first half for Arsenal's first game of the season, and then depending on who you talk to, he apparently at half time went, my knee doesn't feel right, but I'll give it a go in the second half. Or multiple versions of the story. Yeah. Kept playing in the second half, and then turned out he'd done his ACL, and now he's out for the rest of the season. It's a real shame. He's a great player. It would have been fun seeing him at Manchester United, if only because him and Lisandro Martinez are both shorter than 6 foot. So
against the grain.
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see what various pundits thought of that partnership.
You talked about Martial earlier. You've written a piece about Martial. I mean, I feel like we say this every summer, but every year. Is it the end now? Is this him done?
C'est fini.
Yeah.
C'est fini.
It's got to be, innit?
C'est fini. Hang up the black gloves. Hang up the black gloves. Give up. If you still got a Martial FC card, you can give it away. Now this could be me putting 2 and 2 together and getting 22.
Yeah.
But the manner of the swift clarification Manchester United gave when Sky Sports said Manchester United are interested in renewing Martial's contract makes me believe there will be no discussion about extending his deal. They've got an extra option, an additional year. I don't think that's going to be exercised. I think what we're going to see is Martial will rehabilitate the next 10 weeks from this groin surgery. That gives us time until I think April.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He will feature in limited minutes as he gets back or closer to match sharpness, and there'll be a good firm handshake, perhaps a soft hug, and that will be the end of his 9 seasons at Manchester United.
Just about missed out on it.
What do you guys feel about Martial? Because when he came to United, I didn't know a lot about him, but obviously that goal against Liverpool, that first season, the goal against Everton.
So much sadness.
Yeah. Such an exciting player to watch.
I was Martial FC for ages.
You weren't a lot.
I was Martial.
He was massively.
I was Martial FC for ages. I was really annoyed by how Mourinho used him and things Mourinho said about him. The Alexis Sanchez deal I was quite happy about at the start, and then I watched United lose 3-0 to Spurs at the Wembley Stadium. So it's like 6 years ago. And Sanchez was on the left. And I just went, oh my God, why have we've just bought another left-sided player. Rashford, Martial, whatever, they're all. And then remember the summer where, I think the season afterwards, where Mourinho was really, really, really pointed about the fact that he wanted Ivan Perisic and wanted to get rid of Martial. I was like, no, you've got to keep Martial.
Yeah.
And then you see the season later, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer gets that amazing 20-goal season at Martial. I was like, ha! See? It's been proven. And then, but then also, it just makes me really sad. It makes me really sad, you know, if you are a Man United fan and you're going, Mourinho was right about Martial all along, okay-ish, yeah. The problem I have with people saying Mourinho is right is you also overlook how much Mourinho caused the conditions to make himself right. You know,
you can picture him doing it.
It's the thing, you know, Mourinho's see where they play, how they play, if they even play. Well, how they play is your job, big man. If they play is your job. And how, like, where they play, again, if they're not performing great and they seem quite downbeat, kind of your job, was always my Mourinho critique. And I've never been a Mourinho fan to the level of some United fans. So I always thought this about Martial. But also, there was just a point where you went, he can't stay fit anymore.
No.
And he had a hip injury in March 2021. So this is during the bad Martial season.
Was this the Sevilla around that, or was it before?
No, it's before. So this is before the Euros.
Oh, right, sorry.
So before so you know, he has that terrible game against Sheffield United. Remember? Sheffield United beat Man United 2-1. And that was his last 90 minutes playing in the Premier League to this day.
Really?
Yeah. He hasn't played 90 minutes. He hasn't completed a 90 minutes since 2021.
I think you might have told me that stat.
He hasn't done back-to-back 90 minutes since a bit earlier in 2021.
Jesus, wow.
So in 2021, he is, I'm talking fringes, maybe 5th, 6th choice striker for the French team. The French team's quite interesting because Deschamps basically uses Martial as like a bootleg Mbappe. If for some reason Mbappe can't play, he puts Martial in the team and he goes, "You are Mbappe today," because you know in that sort of position. He's the closest analog to close. You know.
Yeah.
But that year, March 2021, he has a hip injury, and after that hip injury, you're going, "Oh, he's not going to make the Euros." And then later in March, he has a knee injury, and that completely rules him out of the Euros. And he's never been the same after that physically. Yeah. He's just not been. He's just lost that explosive yard of pace over the first 5 yards, and that's a real problem for Martial because the two things he's had over everyone is he has better finishing ability than pretty much every player at United, and he's quicker than pretty much everyone. So the physical ability. So when he had that bad season after the good season with Ole, his finishing just went off a cliff. So that meant all these other weaknesses came to the fore in that he doesn't really have a good appreciation of space. The timing of his runs is quite naive, but he could make up for it because, oh no, I'm in like this really awkward position. I'm going to fall backwards and whack it this way. Oh, it's gone top bins because he just knows how to finish in a way that Rashford doesn't know how to do it. Or, I mean, even Cavani, I would say Cavani's a poorer finisher than Martial over an extended period of time.
Yeah.
But that finishing touch went for reasons. He gave a really good interview with France Football explaining that he just couldn't accelerate for the first 3 months of that season, and it just made everything else complicated. It's like, yeah, it made everything else complicated because you don't know how to do everything else. And then when he has his physical, so this physical ability just completely falls down. So he went from being, you know, Martial against the goal against Liverpool, the goals against Everton, or Martial at his best in 2017, 2018, all those years was he ran in behind.
Yeah.
Him and Rashford getting the ball, running in behind defences, really stretching defences, and again. Mbappe, not never to the level of Mbappe. He had the thing where if he just stood in a certain position, the defender's like, I have to pay attention to him because if they play the ball into space, he's going to get there before me.
Yeah.
All those injuries meant Martial just couldn't get there first all the time. So then he went from being just a thrilling player who could receive running in behind defences to someone who just received the ball completely static. You've seen this season and last season when he gets onto the ball now, he just stands there. Receives the ball standing up, then tries to take on the player. He's got the close control dribbling a little bit, but he's not got that burst of pace.
Yeah.
The January Manchester derby, he apparently said the one United won 2-1 at Old Trafford, where Rashford did not touch the ball.
Never had much controversy about that. You know, not much was made of that.
So in that game, Ten Hag came after in the press conference. He went, "Oh yeah, Martial was really important to our plan first half. He told me he could only play. We knew he would only get one half.
Yeah.
And in that entire half, he could not sprint.
Yeah.
There was a moment where he was trying to press, and he moved his arms up and down in that sort of
I remember everyone going mad around me at that point.
When you said he looked weird.
Yeah, we're like, look, he's pretending. He's not pretending. I know, that's what he was saying.
He's not pretending. He just can't do it anymore. You know that you go from jogging to sprinting.
Yeah.
And that's been the story of him pretty much on these 2 seasons on the Ten Hag. And the problem there is because he didn't have what can only describe as the academic focus he should have developed on the Van Gaal or on the Mourinho. You can ask questions as to whether Mourinho was offering the academic guidance or on the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. It meant when he got into trouble, he had to rely on his finishing ability and his pace. And his pace is gone and his finishing ability is gone because his confidence is shot. So he is just so many shades away from the player he used to. And it's a shame because I tell you right now, if there was an 18-year-old in Monaco and he had all the skills that 18-year-old Martial had right now, you would want him at Man United.
Yeah,
definitely.
You make that deal 9 times out of 10 for 18-year-old Martial. He had everything you wanted from an attacking player.
Yeah.
Do you think his career could have went differently elsewhere? Because I know you're talking about the fact that you thought he had a bit of an academic issue in terms of growing his game and developing. I say to Jay and Joe and Steve all the time, how many players over the last 10 years have United signed that have been a relatively young age and have actually progressed and improved during their tenure at Manchester United?
Very, very few. And one thing that was also raised an eyebrow from me is how many players come out the academy and they are in the middle of being a winger and being a number 9. So Rashford came out in the middle of being a winger, number 9.
Yeah.
The gentleman in Getafe came through in the middle of being a winger and a number 9.
Yeah.
Amari Forston is now in the middle of being a winger and a number 9.
I think Januzaj some.
Januzaj was more of a winger. Yeah. Now, you know, I am not the most au fait with academy coaching and whatnot, and they'll say we don't want to put anyone in a fixed number 9 position yet.
What would you say about Elanga? Would you class him as that? Or?
Probably similar. He had games as a 9, as a 21 player. Yeah.
Now, you know,
there seems to be a trade.
Now,
definitely.
When I speak to people far more intelligent than me that know a lot more about this, they will say you don't want to make someone a number 9 too early. And Fergie used to say you wait a little bit longer before you tell a player they become a number 9, because once you do, it's like a switch goes off in their brain.
Right.
You know? Toothpaste out of tube. You go, you're going to be a striker for Man United one day. You're like, I ain't tracking back.
Yeah.
It can go.
Yeah.
It can go. You know, a lot of what I figure out about coach, like from what I understand of coach, a lot of it is like prophecy.
Right.
Is that sometimes it can just be dangerous to tell a player this is what you're doing a couple of years, because then, you know, a couple of years later you're like, but so and so told me I'm going to do this. A good example of this is Phil Foden. We're still going, when's Phil Foden going to play in the middle, despite the fact that he's very clearly better out wide.
Yeah.
But because someone said a couple of years ago, oh yeah, I think he's going to be the heir to David Silva. He's like, yeah, when do I have to? Yeah. We're all like, when's it going to happen? It's all narrative. Now the thing with Martial, and this, I'm being polite when I'm saying academic learning, because I can't tell you if he wasn't the most academic because the teaching wasn't great, or if he wasn't there because the academic learning was because he just wasn't bothered. Yeah. And again, I've spoken to 10 different people, and some of them say he's just not asked, and some will say, well, he was, and then this happened, and then he got distracted.
2024 is upon us, which means a packed schedule of FA Cup, AFCON, and of course, Premier League action. Beat the winter blues, because yeah, it is still winter, and watch every game with the atmosphere, that's not even a word, atmosphere it deserves down at a Green King Sports pub. Don't settle for a dodgy stream on a little screen where you can barely see what's going on. If it's on the telly, it's on at your local Green King pub, across their huge HD screens. That's the way you should be watching football. If you download the Green King Sport app as well, you'll get 10% off every single drink when there's a game on. What more do you want? Their venues offer a range of low and no alcoholic drinks as well, so just because Dry January is finished doesn't mean you have to drink alcohol if you go down to a Green King pub. Their venues offer a range of low and non-alcohol drinks as well, so just because Dry January is finished doesn't mean you can't have whatever non or low alcohol drinks you want, and you don't have to settle for a lower or worse sports venue or a worse football watching experience. You can get everything you want, whether you want to have alcohol drinks, low alcohol drinks. You've got it all at a Green King pub.
So if Ollie comes in after Van Gaal, I think a lot of those younger players that are now 26, 27, 28 probably end up better.
Yeah.
I think Solskjaer is a more natural successor to the football Van Gaal was trying to bring than Mourinho was.
Yeah.
And also the thing that I still am very, very annoyed about is when Mourinho came in, he did ask Man United to like just get rid of all their player tracking data. So that's why United still experience some fitness problems because they're still trying to catch up.
Jeez, honestly, it'd be funny if it wasn't so tragic. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Ten Hag because there's sort of question marks, and I think you've mentioned about his communication skills, and some people look at it and go, he lacks a bit of maybe charisma, for want of a better word. He doesn't seem the warmest guy at times, and maybe he might struggle to get his point across. We've had various reports that maybe that's happened in training or whatever. What do you make of that? Do you think that is a hindrance to him, his communication skills? Do you think that is an issue?
This is one that I've thought about a lot this season.
Yeah.
I wrote about it in The Athletic. And again, I've asked 10 different people and I've got 10 different answers. So I wrote this piece on The Athletic because we heard that certain players were growing disgruntled with Ten Hag's team meetings. So Ten Hag has more tactical team meetings compared to his two predecessors, permanent predecessors, I'd say. And some players perhaps weren't responding well to it. They think they go on for too long, or they think they're just too many. And I went, okay, fine. Went to Manchester United. Manchester United said, okay, well, most team meetings are 20 minutes long. Sometimes they can go to 40 minutes, which is fine. And then when I took all this and I went, all right, well, let me see how does this compare to Ten Hag's time at Ajax? And the answer is, yeah, the same complaints were being had at Ajax.
Yeah.
Right. So when Ten Hag comes, so Ten Hag is not an former Ajax player. He never played for Ajax. He's not from Amsterdam. He's from the German border. So his accent compared to most Dutch people who are on TV talking about football, Ten Hag sounds odd. It'd be like if it'd be as if Chelsea had a manager with a Bristol accent.
Right. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So when he arrived in December in December 2000, I want to say 2017. You were partway through the first season. So there were all those jokes about what's up with this German-sounding hokey bold man who's trying to play transition-based football at Ajax. We're all about possession game. And he's not very charismatic. He's a bit odd. He doesn't really care too much about Johan Cruyff or the principles of Ajax football.
Yeah.
And then what happened? Started winning, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then everything was forgiven. And then his meticulous attention to detail and team meetings all became good reasons. So when he talks about rules and he talks about discipline and he talks about process, these are all things he talks about loads in Dutch as well. I've watched quite a few of his interviews in Dutch. He's like, is he more charismatic in Dutch? I'm going, nope. He's not more charismatic in Dutch. He's the same guy.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting thing here was last season. No, I don't think he was very charismatic last season. I don't think he was any more or less charismatic than he was last season. It's just the team was winning.
Yeah.
And I write this down in the piece. Very often, the difference between tedium and tactics is the consequence. So if you are in anything you're doing in a work of life, if someone's telling you to pay special attention to something that you think is really, really boring or small, and you do it, and it works out well, you're like, oh, that person's a genius. Paying attention to the really small things is actually really important. But if they go, yeah, you got to do this and pay attention to this really, really particular thing, do this beforehand, and then you do it, and then you don't win in air quotes, then you can get a bit miffed. And I think that is what's happened I think that's one of the big changes between this season and last season, is that Ten Hag's trying to play the same football as he played last season. It's just, it's hard to do it when most of your best players are injured. Yeah. So therefore, the repetition that he does, not only in press conferences, but in press conferences and interviews and in other places, probably gets a bit grating. There's been times where I've been sat there going, he's going to talk about the rules again, isn't he? He's going to talk about principles again. Do you know Brian's Gun on Twitter?
Yeah, love him.
So Brian's Gun,
love him.
Brian's Gun did a fantastic one clip about Ten Hag, which is all the time Ten Hag talks about stick to the plan.
Yeah,
we stick to the plan. We stick to the plan. We stick to the plan. We bounce back. And so I've probably been in most of those rooms when he talks about stick to the plan. And you know, if you've just lost 3-0 against Man City, I'm like, she's always going on about the plan.
It's not working. It's not working.
No.
But if you say we won, if you say we won because we stuck to the plan, it's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, consequence is the difference between tactics and tedium, and I think any complaints about Ten Hag's communication style now isn't because he's communicating any better or worse than he was last season. It's because the team wasn't winning.
Yeah.
In my opinion, you should read that article on The Athletic and tell me if I've got this completely wrong. But that is what I've learned. And again, every time I try and hear anything about Ten Hag, I always try and back it up with something I know or something I will try and teach myself from his time at Ajax. I often go back to my Dutch journalist friends, or sometimes I even go back to Amsterdam and just go, I like going to Amsterdam.
Yeah. Sound like go to Amsterdam again for the weekend. It's work related. I've got to do some more research. You've been there 5 times this month. Yeah,
the link to Brian Brobbey. I've got to go.
What was the situation? Was there a time when he could have gone to Spurs?
This is an interesting one.
Because I didn't even realise that until I think you wrote about it.
So this is an interesting one, and this one, it did not get reported by The Athletic. It did get reported in the Telegraph partway through last season. So this is a very good example of how quickly things change. So when Manchester United beat Antonio Conte's Spurs 2-0 at Old Trafford, do you remember this game?
That was one of my favourite games in recent memory.
Right.
I thought the football was mint, the atmosphere was great, we were in control of the game. Completely, I thought Lloris had a really good game, actually. It could have been a lot worse. So
that game, in my opinion, was the best game United played last season.
I agree.
And that game, I watched that one. It was a rare game where I didn't actually sit in the press box. I sat watching it with fans. And I heard loads of fans go, I'm so glad we got Ten Hag over Conte. I'm so glad we got Ten Hag over Conte. I'm so glad we got Conte over Pochettino. And the Telegraph ran a report saying that when they were looking for a post-Mourinho manager, Erik Ten Hag was interviewed. And this interview process got to pretty close to one of the final stages. At least more than one interview. And there were some reservations over his command of English. There was reservations of his command of English. And so they decided to go in another route, and they ended up with Nuno. Again, you talk to Tottenham Hotspur about that, and they're like, not really. We looked at him because he was an impressive manager, but we decided to go somewhere else because of X, Y, Z. I've asked this question to people at Manchester United, and Manchester United went, we don't think that's what happened. Something that's also very important is that Ten Hag signed a contract extension at Ajax that summer as well. So it could be financial based as well. Right. Again, you ask Spurs about it, they're like, no, it's probably the fact he signed a new contract. You ask someone who doesn't like Spurs, like, they flubbed getting Ten Hag because they pretended his English wasn't great. Now, what's really interesting is now Tottenham have Ange Postecoglou, the most charismatic football manager in the Premier League, mate. They've got a great communicator. Yeah. So again, when United are going through a slump in form, the communications or the stories or the things you're hearing is that actually Tottenham Hotspur were right all along about Ten Hag, and they were correct to not pick him up. And now Manchester United are left in the lurch with this uncharismatic manager. And you're like, well, just a year ago you were saying they missed out on Ten Hag. So which one is it? And again, the answer is your team winning? Spurs are winning. Spurs are winning more games than Man United. So then things changed.
I know, probably skipping ahead a little bit. But when he's mentioning about how differently things are viewed when the team's winning, when the team isn't, it's the exact same thing that I said to you in terms of the Rashford situation, with him going out and his night out, and the Ireland situation is, I feel like it would have been responded to differently if the team was winning and he was scoring goals and he wasn't have the poor form that he was in this season. So it fits into a line, the kind of narrative that he's putting out, where it's like things are just viewed differently depending on how bad the situation is. So if you are winning games and everything's rosy, you don't really pick up on them things as much.
Winning is the greatest cure. Because winning is the greatest cure for all elements. And something I come back to a lot is you ever have these, every now and again you get like a saying stuck in your head, like, oh wow, which famous thinker said this, and you look it up and like, oh, it's like Homer Simpson. Yeah. So one thing I always use is just because you're right doesn't necessarily mean you're doing the right thing.
Right. Okay.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really deep thought.
That's quite profound.
It's from Game of Thrones.
Right.
It's Tyrion. It's Tyrion to Jon Snow.
Well, it sounds accurate.
He goes, just because you're right doesn't mean you're doing the right thing. And very often, I think you can flip it, which is just because you're not doing anything wrong doesn't mean something doesn't look bad.